So I've inherited volumes of writing about my grandfather's war experience. And so the crown jewel in his World War II experience was rescuing the King of Belgium. And I'm going to put that in quotes, rescuing the King of Belgium. So it was probably the riskiest thing my grandfather did. He wasn't supposed to do it. They were supposed to be sitting tight. I could see why my grandmother was kind of pissed and why he was kind of embarrassed about it later on in life. Anyway, so that's the guy that taught me how to fish. That right there is the King of Belgium. These are all American soldiers who were involved with my grandfather's little deal. See the car behind him? It's a German 6-wheel Mercedes. And my grandfather had confiscated that, and he happened to have that car with the Nazi flags on it and everything when the opportunity came up that they could go rescue the king, because they were holding him. 17 SS troops were holding him at, I believe it was Mozart, the composer, Mozart's mother's house. I'm not sure if that's, don't quote me on that. Anyway, the Germans had commandeered that house because it wasn't destroyed. And Leopold here had, while in their, quote, custody, had gotten married and had kids and stuff. He was a Nazi sympathizer. More on that later. But the Americans involved here, my grandfather was a first lieutenant, and then these guys are all lieutenants, captains, and majors. Okay, the guy just out of frame here is a lieutenant colonel. So these are all serious, like these are all officers here. I think lieutenant's an officer. It's like that lieutenant's the lowest officer. So and don't he look cool with his shades and anything? My grandfather looks cool in all of these motherfuckers. Anyway, so he was celebrated for rescuing the king for years. He was in the newspaper back home. They celebrated him for this action. Now, if you look up the King of Belgium, you'll get a lot about Leopold II. That's his father. And his father was worse than Hitler. It's arguable he's worse than Hitler. Belgium owes the Congo reparations for sure. The argument is that Leopold acted on his own, so Belgium doesn't owe them anything. Yeah, that's bullshit. Belgium owes Congo reparations. Anyway, so this is a Nepo baby who's incredibly filthy rich. And my grandfather resonates with him. And he's royalty, so he's probably inbred, probably dumb as shit. But here's my grandfather risking his life to save a king. And that's what my grandfather wrote something about. Hey, what the hell? Let's go save a king today. You know, he was looking for glory, my grandfather. And of course, the truth is that's probably why he never made it past first lieutenant. Is because they weren't supposed to. This was a controversial thing that happened. I don't know that you'll find this picture anywhere in the Library of Congress. There's interviews with my grandfather in the Library of Congress, and he's a warmongering bastard even when he was old. I guarantee you he never spoke of it, but he was definitely racist. White supremacist doesn't have to be marching in the streets saying, they don't have to be crazy. If you're just like glad you have a white pilot flying your plane instead of a black one, you're a white supremacist. That's it. If you wouldn't think about hiring a black attorney, you're going to hire a white attorney, you're a white supremacist. And you might not do this front brain. It might all be back brain where you deny it and don't ever think about it as naturally white supremacist. You probably are. Doesn't matter what color you are, you can be a white supremacist. Like if you want your doctor to be a white man or whatever, that's why. If you can only vote for a white man for president, stuff like that, you're a white supremacist. Especially if you go around saying, oh, no, I'm not a white supremacist. If you say, oh, I'm not a white supremacist, you're definitely a white supremacist. Anyway, so timeline here. Right now, today, Israel is killing Palestinians like we used to kill Native Americans. Israel's not copying Hitler. Israel's copying us. Hitler admired the way we treated our Native Americans. He thought it was cool the way he thought the Trail of Tears was kick ass. This guy in Belgium, so Belgium is number 2 in Jews killed during World War II, second to Germany. It's first Germany, then Belgium. So this guy right here, his country was steady killing Jews while he was kidnapped, having a wife and kids and a family, and the son from this, I think, wound up king. Baudin, or however you say it. They talk funny, the Belgians. I think it's some kind of French. They got a lot of French mixed into their language, where English speakers, English is most closely related to, guess what? German. So if this guy right here, and of course all of these other dudes, were born in, say, 1920, let's just call it 1920, because this picture would have been about 1944, 1943, something, whatever. I haven't read everything yet. So if this guy was born in 1920, and so were most of these guys, and I'm telling you, this guy taught me how to fish, and that would have been 50 years later, right? 30 years later, when he was, say, 50, he was teaching me how to fish. So the guys that taught these guys how to fish, not him, he probably didn't know how to fish because he's a king. He has somebody fish for him or whatever. But these guys, these Americans, were all taught how to fish. Again, I'm using quotes, but these guys were all taught how to fish by guys that were born, let's say, 1880, 1870, right? So the guys that raised these guys, because this guy helped raise me, these guys would have all been born around 1920. So the old men grandparents that would have raised them would have been born around the time when we were systematically, as a country, killing all the Indians, all the Native Americans. Certainly, they would have been affected by it, looked up to those people, like the people that taught them how to fish. They were raised by people that actually killed Native Americans, like the people that Hitler admired for how they treated the Native Americans raised these guys. So by the time these guys are over there getting rid of Hitler and then saying, oh, looky, we're totally not racist at all because we got rid of Hitler, then these guys all came back to America and were racist as fuck, unchecked, pretty much the whole rest of their lives. This guy right here lived in a gated golf community. I don't think there was a black person within 20 miles of where my grandfather lived. In that part of the country, they have, sundown towns and stuff where, like, there's parts of town for black people and stuff. And he wasn't in them. He was at his part of town where the rich people lived because he was rich by then. He was wealthy. Because these guys had all cheated death and they came back and just started selling things and the economy was different. Every one of these guys wound up a homeowner. Every one of them, Anyway, so Hitler looked up to the guys who raised these guys, who went over there, got rid of Hitler. So, and because we have a document here at the, since we have paperwork that says all men are created equal, these guys denied their racism till forever. My grandfather was a hawk and was giving an interview about his war experience when he started. I think they kind of stopped him from talking because he was talking about how important it was that we needed to take action then, which would have been around the time of the Iraq War. It's not Iraq, it's Iraq. About the time of the Iraq War, my grandfather was all gung-ho to get in there and kick ass. So he just wanted to kill brown people still when he was, 90 years old, 80 years old, giving that interview. So Israel right now, which is an extension of the United States, we are Israel. Israel is us. They aren't copying Hitler. They're copying us. And when I say they, it's we. We are doing what Israel is doing. It's these imaginary borders and these blaming one guy. So since we got rid of Hitler, nobody's racist ever again kind of bullshit thinking is why has prevailed and why racism runs the show. I do remember one account where there were some black soldiers from Africa and the Germans wouldn't surrender to them until my grandfather got there. And then the Germans all surrendered to my grandfather, but they wouldn't surrender to the black guys because they were afraid they were going to shrink their heads or something. White people are dumb as shit. You know why? Because all people are dumb as shit. But that's how white supremacy repeats itself over and over again. And that's what's going on right now with like liberals and conservatives both, which liberals are conservative, let's be honest. This America's run by fear. The more guns you have, the more scared you are. We're incredibly stupid here, but we're the ones over there killing those Palestinians. It's we're paying for all the guns, all the bullets, all the shells. We're paying for the bombs to kill those people, mostly children and women, because since they're Muslim and brown, it's okay because of Christ or whatever. If you don't know what Zionism is, it's about the most anti-Semitic thing you can do. That's why a bunch of Christians here now support it, because the Jews are supposed to go fight with the Arabs. We're supposed to build a church in Jerusalem or something so Jesus can come back. And of course, the Jews that don't turn into Christians, they all die. So the end goal is to have the Jews and the Arabs kill each other. And then, of course, Jesus, who looks like who? Who does Jesus look like? Who does Jesus look like? Well, of course, Jesus was born in the Middle East and Jewish. So, of course, he's white. He has long hair, unlike these guys. But Jesus is white and Jesus is a white-haired hippie from like California or whatever. So that's what Zionism is hopefully the Jewish people will all kill themselves fighting the Arabs, killing the Arabs. The Jewish people kill all the Arabs, and then Jesus comes along and doesn't accept anybody that's not waving the Jesus flag, right? So it's not really us doing anything. It's God sorting out all the killing afterwards, because we all know God's going to come. You know, it's really stupid. It's very, 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 very stupid. The people that raised us pretended to believe in a lot of stupid shit because of Christianity. You don't believe in virgin birth. Nobody ever believed in that. You don't believe a man walked on water or came back to life after he was dead for 3 days. You don't believe any of that shit. Neither did this liar or any of these liars. These liars all went and told their kids and their grandkids to believe in magic fairy tales. And okay, now that I think about it, my grandfather did say that, quote unquote, they always were kind of part of the problem over there. So hopefully you can figure out who I'm talking about. Alex Jones might call them the globalists. But in terms of the globalists, you know, the problem, the final problem thing, the solution, that was the last one, whatever. Yeah, he said they always were kind of part of the problem over there. So that's how I kind of know. And he wasn't over there to save anybody from any concentration camps. He was just there to blow shit up and get home alive. He didn't. Anyway, like I said, because he didn't say a lot about the war, but when I think about it, and he said, oh, they always were kind of part of the problem over there. It's like, oh, wow, he said a lot, didn't he? Yeah, he said a lot. Very poignant that he said that. He also said horse wasn't bad if you cooked it right. And he was a cavalry man. He loved horses, but he had to eat some because it was war. And he said if it's cooked right, it wasn't too bad. So these little nuggets, these little things he said were actually a lot. One, that he ate horse, and two, that the quote unquote globalists always were kind of part of the problem. That's just what he said. Anyway, that's how white supremacy affects you, me, all of us. It's getting thousands, tens of thousands of women and children who weren't even old enough to vote for Hamas killed at our expense. We're paying to kill brown people right now. And it's to make up for some other white people killing some Jewish people a long time ago. Wasn't Palestinians did the Holocaust anyway. It wasn't them, you know. So anyway, it's all made up. It's us. Thanks for listening. I intend to write a book, but for now, that's kind of the basic idea. That's how white supremacy does follow us around. It is our fault. We are doing it. And up Fizrael.